Welcome back, everybody. I'm with Jenny Paleo, and we're going to continue our discussion on the Battle of the Exes, and we're starting with clarity of mind. And we started our conversation, but we didn't have time to finish it, and we want to continue with some discussion on some of the things that cause us not to have a clear mind, the things that can come into our life and into our mind to disrupt our thinking and get us off track. And so we're going to be discussing a few of those things now, and then we'll talk about how that affects our boundaries and communication with our exes. So Jenny, do you want to start out with any thoughts on your mind right away?
Sure. Definitely a lot to say on this topic for sure. Talking about, just the clarity of mind the last time and just keeping that the focus again, going into discussing issues that might cause our clarity to be askew. Sometimes it's just our circumstances around us can be very chaotic, and that can just cause us to really struggle to pick out, okay, well, what decision do I make in this moment? How do I go from here? How do I clean up this mess, that I'm kind of seeing in front of me? I know early on for me, first time becoming a single mama, it just felt like my world exploded and I was sorting through a lot of rubble. And that's really hard to pick out what is good and what needs to be thrown away. And I think that's true for even in our communication with our exes, what is good and what needs to be thrown away. What do we need to stay focused on and what needs to be eliminated, or just we just don't go there, and I think that's the best way to kind of keep that idea in your mind as you're looking at stuff, even if it's a situation in front of you. Okay, what do I target first, and what is not important, what is not going to be an issue or beneficial to me going forward. So I just want to throw that out there within that. And other issues that we can encounter is sometimes we're in an unsafe scenario. We may have escaped from a dangerous partner, and that might be your story. And so if that's the case, your initial step needs to be, how can I get me and my children safe? And so that is going to look different for everybody in that situation. How to get yourself safe. That might be you stop communicating with certain even friends or family because they're not able to keep your whereabouts concealed, or they're not able to even protect your emotions and your thoughts and what you're doing in that moment safe. So just to be aware, and I just want to acknowledge that could be part of your story and you're working really hard just to stay safe. And I say focus on that. Yes. First. And if I'm sure there are resources in your area that if you're needing help with that, reach out to somebody, please. That would be my charge to you is to reach out to somebody to help you with that safety plan. Another thing that comes in, with just skewing our thoughts and our mental clarity is gaslighting. And Lois and I were talking before we started the podcast this morning, and we've both, I think, experienced that, but didn't know what in the world it was until we were out of that relationship and dealing with that on a regular basis. And so I'm just going to throw out to you that definition of what that is. And I know she's got a great resource for doing some personal research on this afterwards. But the online definition for gaslighting is sowing seeds of doubt that cause you to question your own memory, your perception, or judgment. And this can come in with even twisting a scenario, or, when you confront something that the other person has done that has offended you or has done you wrong, it will be twisted into somehow you will walk away from that conversation questioning if you were the one that did something wrong or caused them to then act the way that they did, that somehow you ended up being the responsible party, or that you're, over emotional, you're super sensitive, you're not seeing things right, you're paranoid, you're all of those things to get you to question that there's something off with you, to get your eyes off of them. And that's the biggest thing is they're trying to skew your perception into thinking something is wrong with the way that you're seeing it or the way that you're perceiving it, so that you are no longer looking at them, but you're feeling guilty yourself. So, and I recognize those thoughts and feelings so much. And I don't know, do you want to just share that resource, Lois, real quick?
You and it's funny because the name is such a weird thing to call it, gaslighting, and it actually comes from an old movie, a 1944 movie that was made where the husband was like, they had gas lamps and he would dim them and make them flicker, and he kept saying, no, there's nothing wrong with those lights, it's in your imagination, and he's trying to manipulate and control and drive her
Oh,
crazy. And that's where the term comes from, because it's like
oh my
gaslight,
goodness.
such a weird term. But
Yes.
there's a website called BetterHelp.com. They're like a counseling service. I'm not sanctioning the counseling service. I know nothing about them. But if you go to that website and go to the advice next, choice up at the top of the line, and then has advice, relationships, and then search gaslighting, and it gives you a real great description of what it is. This I don't even want to say symptoms, but the signs of you're being gaslighted and what you can do to counter that. But if you're feeling really confused and you can't find that place of clarity in your mind, and you feel like you're losing your mind, it could very well be that somebody has been gaslighting you and you don't even realize it. And when I first was coming out of my marriage, when my husband first left, and I don't say this to be negative against him, but I really thought I was losing my mind. And when I went to this church that was a new church to us, and they had prayer up front, and I went up front, nobody knew me, I didn't know anybody there, and they wanted to pray for me, and they're like, what's your prayer request? And I said, well, I don't really have a prayer request. I want to know if you know a good psychiatrist, because I know I'm losing my mind. And that's how I was introduced to this church, because I really felt I was going crazy because I couldn't decipher what was true anymore. And that's what we're talking about now, is to find that place where you know what truth is, and you're not confused, and you're not questioning yourself all the time, and you're not doubting every decision that you make or every thought that you have, because you can't get on a clear path for your life or for your kids, and you can't have clear communication, and you can't have boundaries when you don't know what truth is, and you
Yeah.
don't have a sound, clear mind, and you're not going crazy. You just
Right.
find that place of knowing what truth is and get your feet on solid ground again. So, what else do you have there, Jenny? What else were you thinking about?
Um, Manipulation. Woohoo! It's also another one that can really disorient you. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the gaslighting, because the gaslighting, the purpose of it is to manipulate the way you're seeing and things and experiencing things, so that you're going to doubt yourself and doubt the relationship, or doubt what you're thinking and feeling, so that you won't really know what they're doing, or won't see what they're doing in the process. And but manipulation is kind of a step further. They're doing those things, altering, trying to get you to change your mind about an event or a scenario, or make a decision that you're making for their own personal gain. There's a personal gain to it. So even just making you feel a certain way, or second guess yourself about something, or a big one is accusations. Accusations will come if, like, oh, well, you're just doing that, or you just want to have your kids that weekend because you want to do X, Y, and Z, or you just want this, that, and the other, and making it, accusing you of making a decision because you're trying to do something for yourself, or you're trying to, you know, almost like accusing you of manipulating is their way of manipulating. And I've seen this play out in a lot of different scenarios, not just with my ex-husband, but like a lot of other people. When you start to become aware of this, and and I'm a foster mom, and I work with a lot of other family that is extended family and stuff like that, and there's a lot of roots of manipulation in family lines, and ways that they communicate, or ways that people try to meet their own needs, is by manipulating instead of just accepting and respecting a boundary. And so as soon as you say that, no, this is what I'm going to do for myself and my children, you'll notice that accusation come up. And so this is just a way for you to recognize that this is what's happening. The accusation will come, well, you're not doing this, or you're doing this because you want this, that, and the other. And I don't, every scenario is going to be different, but it will come with an accusation to try to get you to go, well, no, no, I'm not really that way. Okay. And get you to bend in your decision, and get you to change your mind, or turn it so that they get what they want.
Make you feel
Um,
guilty about your decision.
Yeah, make you feel like, well, there's something wrong with you in deciding that, therefore now you need to change it. And it's so easy to fall into that trap. And that's where, too, just getting rooted in your mind, in clarity, and before the Lord, of going, nope, this is my decision. And I know I'm making the right decision for myself and my children. And so I'm going to stick to this. And if that person is not okay with it, they can go throw their tantrum somewhere else, but you don't need to change your mind because of someone else's accusations or behaviors,
And
and the way that they're
that's
speaking.
one of the boundaries that
Yeah.
we are going to be talking about and are talking about, because these flow together. You begin
Yeah.
to set boundaries when your mind is clear and you're not being manipulated and you're not being controlled, and you're not being the manipulator or controlling, because we have to be careful we don't try to do the reverse and
Right.
to get our way. So when we have that clarity of mind, we can have healthy boundaries with our ex, and regardless of how they react or what they do, the boundaries protect us and our kids.
Yeah. And to check your motives.
Mhm.
I definitely want to throw that out there too, because when we're emotional, we're feeling things, we want to protect our children. Those feelings are real, and we want to self-preserve. We want to, close in. We want to just kind of hide in our turtle shell, so to speak, and just hunker down and not deal with a lot of that yucky. Sometimes it doesn't feel good always to communicate about these things, or to release your child into someone else's control or custody, for the time that they're supposed to be with them. And so sometimes it's easy in that self-preservation mode to fall into that manipulation ourselves, or trying to manipulate the situation or adjust it so that we feel better about the situation. And we may not be able to do that. And so check your motives, check your emotions, and check your perception of everything, and just keep taking that back before the Lord. And I've got good friends that I've stayed in contact with, that I'll often take a lot of these feelings to, or these circumstances to, first before I make a final decision, so that they can be real with me. You don't have people that are just like a yes man, or a yes woman. Um, have somebody in your corner that will speak truth to you, that will say, well, I could see that you might want to make this decision because you're fearful, but it may not be the best for your child in the long run. And that this, and to pull that perspective in there. And I've got some friends that have been really, I don't want to say harsh, but they've been really, it feels harsh because it's abrasive truth. Sometimes that truth rubs against some rough spaces in me, and it causes some friction, but you need that so that you are able to make a good decision across the board, and you're not being the manipulator. You're not being the emotional, embittered one. You don't want to make a decision based on unforgiveness or bitterness, or let me just do this to try to stick it to them, or, cause them more harm because you're feeling wounded and hurt. But as long as you're right before the Lord, you can trust the decision that you're making and how you're going about it. And that I feel like is key.
That takes the fear level down as well, when we're confident in our decisions that we're making, and we're making them for the right reasons. And when we have confidence, it's easier to face conflict, because none of us like conflict. And,
Right.
and some of us are worse at it than others. I still hate confrontation.
Yes.
And you may even have to take some kind of course, find where they've got a conflict resolution class that will help you face those fears and face how to confront somebody who is um, abrasive and in your face and strong, and you just feel like you wilt before them, and if you stand up, you're going to get blown away. And so you have to learn techniques to face somebody like that, to say what you want and no more, and not to engage in that argument, and not to engage with that person on that level because you don't want to get up to where they're at.
Right.
You may not be able to bring them down to a level of calm, but you don't have to rise to their level of rage either. And so conflict resolution is a huge thing, and confronting your own fears. But when you're clear in your mind and you set yourself some boundaries and you know your decisions are right, it's much easier to have those conversations that you don't want to have, and do them with strength. And like I say, I think knowing when to be silent at the end
Yeah.
is probably the best thing, and not respond to any of their reactions, because
Yeah.
that's what they want, and they will suck you in and you're right back where you started from. So
Oh.
state your case, state why, be clear, be confident,
Mm-hmm.
just not walk into their world.
Yep. Oh, that's so true. I was such a reactionary person for so long. I'd feel an emotion and out would come what I needed to say, or I just, in an argument, it was like I always had to just be quick to one up or throw that next punch. And that's something that it was like almost immediately in this process, the Lord put a guard on my mouth and
Mhm.
was like, just take a step back and just wait. And, and I mentioned this in the previous podcast, but a lot of times that stepping back and waiting almost gave room in so many scenarios. It gave room for either a situation to kind of have time to work itself out, or for more information to be revealed so that I could make an educated decision. Okay. And it gives more room because they'll come with accusations. They'll come with all these things that you're doing wrong, the decisions you're making wrong right in that moment. But then as you just kind of sit for a moment, and before you respond with a no, I don't, or try to defend yourself, let them unravel.
What other boundaries can you think of right offhand that we want to share?
Um, well, a good verse I just want to share is Psalm 19:14, that just states, "May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." And I think just understanding He is your redeemer, He is your defender. If somebody's coming at you, I think the accusations are the hardest, at least for me, because I feel like I need to be seen in a good light. I need to be seen as though I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing a good job. Like that's something that in me is super valuable. So if somebody comes at me with an accusation, my initial response is to do whatever I can to defend myself, to make it clear that I am doing the right decision, to explain myself, and then you're just pouring out all of this information and emotion onto somebody who it's really pointless. They're
Yes.
not going to hear it, and you're wasting your breath. So just being able to rest in the fact that the Lord is your rock,
Yes.
He is your redeemer, He's your defender. And by setting your thoughts and your attention on Him, you will be able to speak in such a way that your words will be life, that you will not fall into speaking death or speaking manipulative or speaking in the same way. You won't be responding in the same communication patterns as the other individuals and getting sucked into that, because your thoughts will be set in the right direction and you'll be choosing to be pleasing to the Lord. So that's number one. That's a personal boundary. That's something you need to put on yourself. You're putting a fence, so to speak, around your own yard,
Yeah.
so that, and you can decide who comes into your yard, who you let. Sometimes there's individuals like the mailman. He's only going to come and just drop stuff off in your mailbox. He's not going to come into your house necessarily. So there's certain individuals that you set a certain boundary for, that I'm only going to let them come so close. And this is relating this to your emotions as well. So even, putting this boundary up of, okay, I'm not going to put all my emotions. I'm not putting my furniture on the front lawn. I'm not putting my clothes out on the front lawn. I'm not sharing that with everybody, but there's only some people that I'm going to allow into that space of emotion. And emotion, cutting that off with somebody who can be manipulative, who is a gaslighter. Don't share your emotion with them. Keep it very, very professional. Keep it very fact oriented. This is what the plan is going to be. This is when I can be at such and such a place. This is what my schedule looks like. Very business oriented. It doesn't have to be, well, but I don't really want to do that, or I don't feel like I want to let my kids be there. Don't share that with those people. They can't handle that, and they're going to use that to their advantage. And then stay very child focused, but don't allow them to see even those weak or vulnerable spaces in your life. Again, set up that fence. They only come to a certain point. For the longest time, the boundary that I had, I didn't even let my ex-spouse come to my home to pick up my child. I met them somewhere, because my home is my haven. That's my safe space. So setting up some of those things where you feel like you can maintain your emotional health and mental clarity, while navigating through some of that.
Yep. These are all really good ideas, and we're such individuals, and everybody's situation is different. But these boundaries and clarity of mind are for all of us, because everybody, whether you're married or single, it really doesn't matter. We all need boundaries in our life. But when we're exposed to and thrust into a situation where we have to be with somebody that is not on the same page, who is not for you, who may be confrontational, who may be outright dangerous, we really need to know how to put boundaries and how to protect our mind, so our mind doesn't take us down a road we don't want to go. So I hope that these podcasts have helped you to at least begin to start that process of looking at, what have you been seeing as truth and what really is truth? What can I do to find that truth? What boundaries can I put up for my family and my situation that will help me? And these are just starters, because we're all so different. And there's people in your life that can help you with that will see things differently than you're seeing them. And don't be afraid to seek advice from them. Keep close to the word. Just fill your life and your home with the word, with worship music and with scriptures, because it really truly does make a difference in how we see things, and our perspective of life, and our perspective of what we want to do and where we want to go, because ultimately we want to look down the road for our family and what's going to be best for our family, and how do we want our family to look next year and the year after that. And these boundaries and clarity of mind are going to make a huge difference. So our next podcast, we're going to talk about a little bit more with the communication with the ex. We've covered some of that, quite a bit of it now, but we probably will still cover more of that in our next session. And we also want to talk about communication with our kids to keep that healthy as well when stress is going on, because they're feeling the stress as well. They're caught in the middle many times. So we'll be discussing those things. Thank you so much, Jenny, for being with us again. Be sure to visit our Facebook page, Single Mamas Ministry, and thank you for joining us.